a few of them, 400 odd crews involved. There you see the site, and Chris Baillieu and Harry Carpenter will pick them all out for you.
You must be joking, Des. Anyway, the head of the river, as you say, is the Tideway's greatest spectacle, and it's just getting underway now. 420 crews, 32 of them from overseas, will row in procession from Mortlake to Putney. The boat race course reversed, and the crew that records the fastest time will win. It is not so much a race, more of a time trial, but there is bound to be some overtaking, and they're under their way. Now the first crew, and they go in the order in which they finished last year. So the holders, the Amateur Rowing Association's national squad, first crew, won last year, and they're leading the way in this procession from Mortlake to Putney, followed by the second crew of the national squad, and in third place is the Italian crew, Campania region. So they go off at about 10 seconds apart, roughly speaking. Chris Baillieu, he knows all about this, he'll tell you more about it.
Yes, very roughly speaking, as we're looking down now on the national squad crew, around with Stephen Redgrave and Andy Holmes in the middle. That crew, there are Olympic medalists, World and Commonwealth medalists, followed by the second squad crew, which is built round the Nottingham lightweight group. They're all, 6 of them are lightweight medalists, and starting very close behind them were the Italian crew from Campania, who were also well decorated with medalists.
And that's the top 6 in the order they go off. And as you can see from our picture, while the leaders have begun their race, hundreds of other crews are still coming upriver to take their places for the start. So you've got the leaders going in one direction and the people who are going to row later going in the other direction. A most amazing spectacle. And remember, 420 crews in the end will take part in this event. The record time, recorded in 82 by the national squad, 17 minutes 10.42 seconds. And Chris Baillieu thinks it might be quite fast this year.
Yes, this wind we've got today, which is a northwesterly, which has dropped substantially since the morning, will actually help them just the same way as it hindered the boat race crews which rowed in the opposite direction. Since the boat race this morning, the tide has turned, and these crews are now racing on a fast ebb tide, and they've got the assistance of the wind behind. So providing there's a sufficient pressure up at the front of the race, with the number 2 and 3 pressing on number 1, we should get a really good race for the winner of this event. And this is the first crew, the national squad crew. They come towards us. Terry Dillon at bow, John Maxey at 2, John Garrett at 3, Martin Cross, Olympic gold medalist at 4, and Andy Holmes and Stephen Redgrave at 5, 6, Adam Clift at 7, and Richard Stanhope at stroke. They're coxed by Pat Sweeney, who coxed Stephen and Andy their World Championships gold medal this summer.
Barnes Railway Bridge, which is one of the timing points for the boat race, and again will be a timing point in this race. They've shot Barnes Bridge, the leading crew. The Amateur Rowing Association's national squad 1 leads the way from the second crew from the national squad, and then in third place the Italians from Campania.
And the second crew, who are composed of lightweights, and in rowing we have 2 divisions, the heavyweights, who are unlimited size, and the first crew's average weight is pushing up on 15 stone, and the second crew in the middle of our picture, who are all lightweights, which means that their average weight has to be around 11 stone. They've actually got 2 heavyweights for making up the crew today, but they're essentially all lightweights.
The Italians, Chris, is this a new thing for them?
No, they've been over here for the last 2 or 3 years. I think they like the opportunity to race abroad at this time of year. This is the Nottingham crew who've lost their boats on the way down. They had a tremendous accident, and they're borrowing a boat today. There's Chris Bates, who's a silver medalist from the World Championships and a Commonwealth silver medalist. Peter Heine also in the same crew. Now this is one of the heavyweights who's making up the crew for the day. Alan Whitwell just in front of him, who's world champion in the double sculls from Nottingham. Ian Knight also a heavyweight making up the crew from Nottingham. 6, Carl Smith, who rowed also in the double World Championships gold medalist. And Neil State, silver medalist from the 4s at Nottingham, lightweights. and Stuart Forbes their stroke.
What's the advantage of having the cocks up front, as that second crew has?
Well, very little. In 2,000 metre racing there is some suggestion that it balances the crew a little bit better, but they borrowed this boat from the national squad today because their own was destroyed. It's not perhaps the best boat, particularly if it's blowing very hard and very rough. It all tends to come in over the cocks.
Now from our aerial shot you get a good view of that vast Surrey bend, which is now looming ahead. And dozens and dozens and dozens of crews still making their way up to the start as the leaders pass them by.
This sort of racing is really rowing's equivalent to the cross-country running season. In the summer, of course, crews race over much shorter distances, usually around 6 minutes. But they do their endurance training over this sort of distance in the winter. And this is the sort of final race of their winter training period before they start switching into the summer racing higher tempo work.
There's been very little change relatively in the positions of the first three crews, has there?
No, very little. And I think the lightweight crew, the Nottingham contingent of the national squad, are holding on very well. Of course, the further these crews row, the shorter the advantage, oddly enough, of the heavyweights. And the heavyweights' advantage tends to be magnified over the 2,000 metre course, and I would expect to see the lightweights proportionally doing very well here, but over the second half of the course the heavyweights I expect will draw away. But at the moment, pressure's being maintained on that first lead crew from the national squad by their lightweight compatriots, and the Italians, who too are still within striking distance but have fallen back from their starting position, because as you may remember they were almost overlapping the second crew when they started.
In Corney Reach
here we have the leaders, the right of the picture, national squad, followed by Nottingham national squad and the Italians.
And in fact there's another national squad 8 coming up in fourth place, isn't there?
With the Italians here we've got a bit of a grudge match, because in the middle of this Italian boat are the brothers Abignali, who were the world champions in cox pairs this year until beaten by Stephen Redgrave and Andy Holmes. You'll see them in the middle, to our right of our picture. Brothers Abignali, who will be out to try and get one back on the English cox pair, who removed the title which they'd held for 3 years before this summer's World Championships in Nottingham.
They look like twins.
They're extraordinary. There are in fact 3 of them, but only 2 rowing in the boat today.
Now back at the start we have crew number 36, and Chris will tell us what's significant about this.
Now this is the University of London first crew. Last year the University of London had 2 crews in the event, and one of them was disqualified and the other received a time penalty for failing to pay attention to the umpire's instructions, so they were told to start further back. But they are a fast crew and we anticipate them finishing well up in the first 10, and they are the crew that those starting up the front will be concerned about. The great problem with this sort of racing is that you can never let off, because you don't know whether you've won until the times come out.
And now the leaders pass Chiswick 8. You can see that little island there in the background, the famous Chiswick 8, which is approximately halfway, just about 2 miles.
What a difference that change round in the wind makes. Here comes the national squad in nice flat water. Tailwind down Chiswick 8, pushing them along. Looking towards that number 1, Terry Dillon there, 6'5", nearly 15 stone. Cox Pat Sweeney has been abroad in America for 10 years. Tells me the last time he rode in this race was 1977, and he won it then.
So they're coming in quite close to the Surrey bank.
Yes, I think they'll be looking for the shortest possible route. They'll take the slightly centre of the inside line. Here we have the crew 4, who are the second lightweight national team, but they're being closed up by Fiat, who are the second Italian crew here today. They're coxed by an English girl, Pauline Wright, who coxed the English 8 in the last Olympics. And this is, I think, on their side, a very wise choice, because the Italian coxes don't know the river, and we saw this morning in the boat race how terribly important it is to know where to go. and although there may be slight language difficulties, she'll certainly steer them well. And here they are, trying to overtake a crew in what is a very difficult point in the race.
And there you get a good aerial shot of the battle that's going on there between crews 4 and 5, the National Squad number 3 crew and the Fiat Aviazione crew from Italy. The Italians are pulling level. The leaders come to Hammersmith Bridge. It's centenary year, this famous old suspension bridge.
Well, the first National Squad crew seem to, just after halfway, had taken about 3 seconds off their lightweight squad members. And they're now coming down towards the final straight under Hammersmith Bridge, and it's the way home. But it's a very painful long way home. They've got to maintain this rhythm all the way down and increase the tempo as they come into the final mile. You can see those flags on top of the Hammersmith depository there. Nothing like this morning when they were standing out, almost flying upwards, certainly at right angles. And we can see that the second crew, the National Squad lightweight crew, has opened up a big gap on those Italians from Campania. It looks as if their attempt to gain the headship has already failed so far this year.
And for the first time today, the sun has come out in time to greet these oarsmen, these leaders, as they head for home at Putney. They'll soon be coming alongside the Fulham football ground, where the 3rd Division match is in progress against Port Vale.
And the first squad crew is really not making very much impression on the lightweights behind them. There's a tremendous tussle going on here for first place. I would have said, if anything, the second crew has begun to close a little on that first crew. And this is Hampton School, who are the outstanding school crew in Great Britain today. They've produced a number of quite outstanding oarsmen, including Matthew Britton, who we saw rowing for Cambridge this morning. They recently won the School's Head of the River, the prize for which was a trip to Hong Kong, where they take part in the Southeast Asia Championships. Trained by Steve Gunn, who's a coach to the Oxford Ladies crew. These are very, very tough youngsters, trained extremely hard.
And as we look at Hampton School, so the battle for the lead is being fought out fiercely indeed as they come towards the boathouses of Putney.
This is a difficult angle for the cameras, but we can see here how these first 5 crews are all still very much in contention. But that first crew is in some difficulty with the lightweights, and what a coup it would be if the lightweights can get right on top of the heavyweight crew. Very much fancied this squad crew, has destroyed all the opposition it's met in training.
And as they come towards the Fulham football ground, I hear that Fulham are trailing to Port Vale by 2-0. Not happy days at Fulham.
We've got ideal conditions for lightweight rowing. The faster the conditions, the more it tends to favour the lightweights. If you get heavy conditions like the boat race crews rode in this morning, it certainly helps to have a heavyweight crew. But here the lightweights being blown along, rowing beautifully. Their stroke, Stuart Forbes, sets a quite beautiful rhythm. It's always a beautiful crew to watch, any crew that he strokes. Striking a little bit higher, a few more strokes a minute they may take than the heavyweights. They're not impeding the boat in any way. And here come Campania from Italy. All internationals in this crew, all of them have won medals at world class, so it shows the standard of the field at the front of this. And here's number 5, which is Fiat, who've overtaken number 4, the second lightweight crew. Again, a mix of Italian internationals and club oarsmen, coxed by Pauline Wright of Great Britain, making up well.
We look down, magnificent aerial view on the leading crew. Number 1, the ARA National Squad, winners last year. They won by 20 seconds.
They're certainly not going to have that this year. They're not getting it their own way at all. I'd say the gap has stayed barely moved.
Be a very close thing indeed, isn't it, between these leading two crews?
There's really not much in this at the moment, Harry. It's extremely difficult to tell from this distance, but on the basis they started with roughly 2 lengths of clear water between them. And here we have London University, who are making their charge from the back. Now they're going to have some slower crews to overtake, and weaving in and out of the stream can impede you a little bit, particularly if the crews in front don't get out of the way as quick as they're meant to. The idea is that the crews who are overtaking have right of way, and any crew in front of them should give way, but of course it doesn't always work that way.
And now the two leading crews within sight of the finish. They finish at the University Stone just above Putney Bridge, which is the starting point, of course, for the University boat race.
I'd say that the squad first crew has pulled away a little bit in this last 2 minutes, but it's no substantial gap. They've raised their rate of striking to over 36 in an effort to get as far away from this second crew as possible. But it's a tremendous effort by the second squad crew, who chased them the whole way down the course. This is a boatload of heavyweight internationals, well over 14 stone average weight, and coming up behind them, the lightweight group based at Nottingham, national squad again. Most of them only around 11 stone.
And that second crew have left the Italians some way behind them. So here we are now looking down on Putney Bridge, and just above that bridge is the finishing mark, and they're almost there.
A tremendous tussle there. The squad raised their rate up to 38. They're obviously anxious and they want to get out as far as they can.
And it's all over. The national squad first crew, last year's winners, are home again. And we have to wait now to see what their time is compared with the times of all the other crews that will be coming behind them. 420 in all. The winner, effectually speaking, will come from what must be the top 6 or so.
I think so. I think it's very unlikely that anyone will come from further behind. In fact, looking at the standard of the crews, I think the winner will be held in the first 3 or 4. There's London University overtaking Tideway Sculler's second crew nearest you in the picture, red and gold blades. London University making rather hard work of it. They're a big crew, and in this tailwind they may not find it too easy. And inside them again, the Hampton School second 8. Good tussle there. You see the sort of problems you face in this long distance race. The middle crew there is really the meat in the sandwich.
37? No.
That's an astonishing picture.
39? No. 38?
Hampton School.
No.
Building up towards the finish. We'll be looking for another good row to see them on their way to their trip to Hong Kong. And they've come up on 14 and overtaken them. Number 14 are London's first crew, pressed up on Hampton. You can see how close these crews are getting. They all want to hold the middle line, which is where the strong tide is. So there's a tremendous tussle going along here. 13 trying to hold off 14. Hampton School, those schoolboys fighting off the older men from London Rowing Club, including several Oxford and Cambridge Blues there in the London crew in the middle.
Well, this is the first time the boat race and the head of the river have clashed on the same day since 1967. The head of the river, of course, is an amazing event. For some it's deadly serious, but for a lot of other people it's a jolly day out. Let's hear from one of you.
Your labours a moment. You're Putney Town?
Putney Town Rowing Club, that's right.
Well, whereabouts do you start this afternoon?
165.
And is that a decent start?
It's not bad. We're hoping to improve a little bit. We'll see how it goes.
What are you feeling about the conditions? Much improved from earlier, haven't you?
Yeah, now the tide's changed, it should be fine. Once we've got the wind behind us, we'll be having a lot easier row than the Cambridge and Oxford crews did, that's for sure.
And what do you feel are your chances of improving on previously?
Well, maybe we'll get about 150, I don't know.
How
We'll see.
seriously do you take it all?
Quite seriously, yeah.
I mean, how serious has the training been?
Well, for Putney Town, quite serious.
What does that mean?
But it does about 2 nights a week training, weekends out in the boat. And yeah, we've taken it reasonably seriously. A few head races before to get used to it. So
And a few beers less than usual over the recent weekend?
yeah, maybe.
Good luck anyway.
Right, thanks very much.
Maybe. The man from Putney Town talking there to Gerald Sinstadt. And crew after crew now is finishing over this famous reverse course, Mortlake to Putney. We should be getting some times pretty soon from the leading crews home. We're waiting for those. Meanwhile, this procession, I keep repeating it, but it is astonishing that you can launch 420 racing 8s onto the River Thames at the end of March and produce a spectacle like this. The marshalling of these boats, getting them afloat and getting them to the start so that they all start in the order in which they're listed, it is an astonishing feat of organisation. And look at this for a little race going on here between these three.
So we've got Hampton School just holding on to the older men behind in the London and the Bedford crew. London in the middle there, Bedford on the far side. And they had a real race down the last mile of it.
Quite big crowds along the Hard here at Putney. People coming out in the afternoon sunshine and enjoying this amazing spectacle.
All the way up and down this river have been dramas. Everyone is having their private battles, overtaking, being overtaken, trying to stop being overtaken. Meanwhile, there we have crews on the way to the start. 195, still a long way to go.
Liverpool Victoria, number 195.
And here we have Crew 71, Rent-A-Crew, by name, not entirely by nature, though it's a band of friends who get together for these sort of events. It includes Tom Boswell, Radio 2's rowing correspondent, rowing down the far end of the boat at the 7th seat. 2 from the Cox. Taking it rather more leisurely than you find with the top crews. There we have London University making their challenge. Coming down to Barn Elms, they've got about 2.5 minutes to row. Of course, they don't know what's gone before them, so they've got to do everything they can to produce the fastest possible time. Coming past Fulham Football Ground.
They've probably overtaken 1 or 2 crews. Still no times in from the leading crews.
Seven time 1 and 28 yeah.
London's day out on the river.
This is the largest 8s race in this country. It's almost the largest in the world. There's one race in America where they race throughout the day on a non-tidal river, which is bigger. There's plenty of demand for this race. There could be very many more entries if the river actually permitted it. 420 is the maximum number which the river authorities will permit for safety reasons. There are various races held over this reach, but this is by far the largest, and it's a tremendous feat of organisation and management to actually get everyone in the right place and the right time. boats, apart from the number of people, each one of these boats is worth at least £7,000, so there's an awful lot of hardware which has to be looked after down there.
There are prizes, of course, for a lot of people, aren't there? All sorts of grades and prizes in various grades.
Yes, there's help, prizes given for everyone, not least the overall winner, but to the best crew who rows on the tidal reaches of the Thames, the best crew from off the Thames. There are all the help.
Now then, Gerald Sinstadt is talking with Mike Sweeney.
Pat Sweeney, can I have a quick word with you? What's your verdict at the end of that? Do you think you've done enough?
From the sounds of it, I can't really see anything that's going on behind the lead. Let me know what's going on, and it sounds like I think we did, yeah.
The lightweights from Nottingham gave you a bit of a race there, didn't they?
Yeah, they went really well. We didn't have a particularly great race. It was quite good, but it was very, very rough all the way down, so we really couldn't just use the strength that's in the boat. It was always running away, the water swirling underneath us, and it wasn't a very good plane just to work on, so it was a little bit, not quite right, but it was pretty good, but it could have been a bit better than we had.
From the water side, it looked a lot better than it did earlier for the university cruise.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. It was swirling underneath, it wasn't the breakers, but there was a lot of movement underneath the water, and there wasn't an even plane to sit there and actually work at. So,
you make a bit of a habit of winning this, don't you?
Not for 10 years, it's the first time I've done it in 10 years. So.
And won last time?
Yeah, 10 years ago.
You booked your seat for 97?
We'll see. We'll see.
Well done. Let's come along and talk to Steve Redgrave and Andy Holmes here if we can get that far. Steve, back in the 8 again, have you enjoyed that?
That was quite enjoyable. We didn't hit a very good rhythm, it was a bit rushy and wasn't the ideal way for a big heavyweight crew to row. But I think we got there first and that's what counts.
And getting you in good trim for the summer?
We're getting there. It's a long process at the moment, but we're getting there.
And just a quick word with Andy behind you. Andy, have you enjoyed the race today?
Yeah, it's alright. It's a long way though. A long way, 17 minutes. Takes it out of it.
You'll be glad to get back to 2,000 litres.
Yeah, be a bit of a rest after this.
Well done, thanks very much all of you.
Well, those are the stars of this event, but Gerald Sinstadt's also been talking to one of the chaps who is not quite such a star.
Mortlake Anglia and what?
An Alpha Rowing Club. We're a combination of 3 clubs sort of amalgamated in the last 20-30 years.
Do you compete in this event regularly?
Yes, we've been here since the very beginning, since the first head started in 1920. We've always boated from here as Mortlake.
What does it offer you?
Well, it gives us a chance to gauge ourselves against the best in England and in Europe. You know, we're just happy to compete and do our best.
And how do you measure up against the best in Europe?
Not very well, I'm afraid. We have good days and bad days, and we just hope today's a good day.
Are you a serious or a social rowing club?
Social rowing club, with serious elements to it.
So have you slimmed down on the social side in the last couple of weeks?
And in fact, we picked up on the social side in the last couple of weeks. Yeah, rather than slim down.
And planning 1 or 2 tonight?
I think so, yes.
Hope it goes well for you anyway. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
We're beginning to get some provisional times through, and I stress provisional. And what we're getting, the information we're getting, there it is that the times are very fast indeed. We haven't got, in fact, the second crew down, but the leaders there, the National Squad 1, have recorded 16 minutes and 37 seconds. Now, if that's right, and it must be somewhere near right, that is well inside the record. The record stood at 17 minutes 10.42, which was set by the National Squad in 82. So here we've got, 23rd, over half a minute faster. And we haven't yet got the time for National Squad 2. The Italians have also broken the old record, rowing in 3rd position. That's the Campania region, Italian National Squad. Same crew that rowed here last year.
That's an enormous amount of time off the record, Harry. Actually, I predicted at the beginning that these were definitely very fast conditions, but it just shows what happens when 2 crews can race over this course. And it's the first time that I'm aware that this time rowing with the tide has actually been faster than the boat race record. Boat race record 16:45, rowing from Putney to Mortlake. Now we see 16:37. But down the river there are a crew, number 71, rent a crew again, with our Tom Boswell from Radio 2. looking a little bit weary perhaps at this stage of the race, but getting there in style if not with speed. Now I think we see Tom at bow here. Yes, 7 when he told me last. Tom at bow, our radio correspondent. I think he'll make it.
Just.
Only just. He's in very good company. He's got at least one Olympic bronze medalist in that boat with him.
And still they come. Crew after crew on this famous stretch of Thames water. And now Gerald Sinstadt is with the lightweight crew, National Squad 2.
You've obviously given the national squad a bit of a race. Do you think you've done enough to catch them?
I don't know, I'm not sure. We'll wait till we see the results. It's going to be very close though, very close.
What sort of row did you have?
Nice and comfortable actually. It's important for this sort of distance. It was good together, nice, smooth, pacey row. Very pleasing.
And a lot easier than it was this morning, I guess.
Yeah, thank goodness the wind has calmed down.
So what does this promise for the summer? Really a makings of a good squad for Britain?
I think so, yeah. There's a lot of strength in depth now, and when we split into our special boats, then I think we can carry a lot of fitness with us.
Well done, thanks very much.
As we look down from our heli telly, still no news of that cruise time, that lightweight cruise time, which must be very close to the national squad heavyweight cruise time. That has been recorded at 16:37, which, as Chris Baillieu said, is astonishingly fast, an enormous lump off the old record. The Italians, rowing in third position, came home in 17 minutes dead, according to the provisional time, so somewhere in between there is crew number 2's time, and they might be pushing number 1.
I shall be surprised if they're far short of 16:40, and we might even find they're closer than that. It's very hard to tell when you're merely looking at the gap as they go past. Interestingly enough, the second Italian crew, Fiat, were only 1 second behind their compatriots.
Now then, there's a young lady coxing, and we had a word with her a little earlier on.
Your Exeter Rowing Club, what's your function here today?
I'm the coxswain.
And whereabouts are you starting in the race?
297.
That sounds a long way down.
It is.
And is there a special problem for the cox when there are so many boats on the river?
Yes, trying not to collide with everybody else.
Have you done it before?
Only on as a 4. This is the first time in an 8.
Apprehensive?
Very.
Hope it goes well for you.
Thank you very much.
Well, she'll be feeling better now that she's out on the river. Now, number 116, that cox there is none other than one of the likely lads, Rodney Bewes, a great sculling enthusiast. He's always out on the river down here, member of London Rowing Club. That's one of the London club's many boats in this event. So Rodney Bewes out there coxing his crew, straight banked. Now then, we've had an astonishing provisional time up. Our computer is telling us that crew number 8, which is University of London Tyrian, have recorded 16 minutes 10, which, if it's right, is 27 seconds faster than the number 1 crew, the national squad crew, and they were half a minute and more in front of the old record. Can that possibly be true?
Well, I hesitate. I suspect there may be a minute error there. 17:10 I would regard as more possible. Let's wait until the results come through, I think. But it's still the crews come. These are only the men's crews. You mentioned earlier there is a limit to the number of crews that can row here. So the ladies actually row their own race, which took place a couple of weeks ago. More than 100 crews in the women's race for the first time this year. It's a rapidly expanding sport for the women. But here we see quite a lot of lady coxswains. Still they stream down. Barn Elms down towards the finish.
closer view. Rodney Buse, coxing one of London's eights. Enjoying himself immensely, loves the river. Now rowing in that crew is none other than Dan Topolsky, the famous coach of the Oxford boat race crew. And Dan, of course, earlier today had another triumph with his Oxford crew. There he is.
Dan was telling me he's rowed in every year since 1962 bar one. Dan Topolsky's rowed in this race. On that occasion he was on a trip around the Far East.
So an appropriate moment to have a look again at what happened in today's university boat race. So that was what happened here on the tideway earlier today, and now in much better conditions. The head of the river is still going on. This is a crew from the east end of London, Poplar and Blackwall, and we can have a word now with the bearded member.
Poplar and Blackwall.
That's
How long
right.
have you been competing in head of the river races?
This is my first head race, first head of the river race, yeah.
What have they told you about it?
It's a long way, and we're likely to get very wet if the weather stays any worse than it is.
Were you a conscript or a volunteer?
No, I'm a volunteer, and we might have to conscript a couple of more guys.
You're still short?
Yeah, we've lost a couple of people on the way down here. Oh, I've just heard they've just turned up, so we'll have a full complement.
Bad map reading, not faint hearts.
I think they might have stopped off for a small beer, I'm not sure.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
And there he is in the boat. And that little interview gives you an idea of what this day is all about to some people. It's a wonderful day out.
Row number 173.
These are people who've just finished. They're coming down under Putney Bridge. The long row is over for them. And people still rowing up to the start. Quite astonishing. I don't know how many have gone off so far, but there seem to be 100 or more still waiting to go.
When this race was conceived, it was one as a culmination of winter training combined with a fine social event. The man who created this event, Steve Fairbairn, a famous oarsman from the CAM and later at London and Thames rowing clubs, great believer in hard work over long distances, a great innovator in English rowing, been much admired over the years, and he set up this race in 1926. In those days there were only 20 entries, and here we are at 420. How pleased he would have been.
Now we look down on Hammersmith Bridge. And the computer, with its provisional times, is still showing that crew number 8, University of London Tyrian crew, recorded 16 minutes and 10 seconds. And we're still looking at that with some skepticism, Chris and I must say, particularly Chris. And crew number 1 is at 16 minutes 37, which we thought was extraordinary anyway.
And here we have Dan Topolsky rowing at bow in this crew here. He's in very good company too. He's got a number of former Olympic and world medalists on board with him to help him along. Well, I'm glad his crew doesn't row like him. No, I think actually he's always been a very sound technician. Dan, a world champion himself at lightweight. Never changed stylistically. He still does a lot of rowing himself. He's devoted to the river. And he's a great competitor. He rowed in the boat race at 11 stone odd, and he's always fought as an oarsman and fought as a coach. It's one of the reasons for his great success. Well, they've got about 3 miles to go. So he's got we'll see how he's feeling perhaps a little further down the course, but at the moment, however much champagne he may or may not have had, he's still going well.
Rodney Buse testing his vocal cords. Stroke, I'm not sure whether Stroke's enjoying the... Oh, they're all laughing away.
Stroke's a doctor, so I think he's just keeping an eye on making sure that the heart rate's not going too high with the rest of his friends.
And still, these crews come from Mortlake to Putney, crew after crew. Wonderful scene.
There's the biggest and just getting their nose in front of the city of Oxford.
Good battle going on here as they reach the finish. That's the famous old Fulham Wall on the other side.
It's much admired abroad, this style of racing. Britain pioneered this, and indeed we pioneered the sport in many respects, and we're actually able to use this as a valuable part of winter training before the crews tune themselves for the summer.
120.
May seem not the ideal way perhaps to race, but everybody gets competition down the course, and it gives stimulus over a long course like this. No one's left out. There's always something going on.
There's Rodney Bewes steering his men home.
He's just the fourth of London Rowing Club's crews. They have the largest entry today. They have 10 crews entered from that club. Definitely a veterans crew. Oddly enough, the veterans have to race twice. There's another race for the veterans tomorrow. It was felt that there were an awful lot of veterans taking part in the main race, and that perhaps more young men should be let in, so they started a race for veterans on the following day on the basis that perhaps some of them would do just that, but most of them seem to be doing both. So we've got some very fit veterans on the Thames.
And relief that it's all over. Crew 411 still going up to the start. They haven't begun yet. And we can look down on the Fulham Port Vale match at Craven Cottage. 2-0 to Port Vale, the last I heard. And that looks fairly sparsely attended. Young person there, wondering what it's all about, bumped about all over the place.
The crews who started at the lower end were warned to bring their lights with them so that they could actually get themselves back after the end of the race. They might have said they could do with windscreen wipers, as it's beginning to get a little bit dark in the background there. A lot of these crews do train at night, and there has to be very fierce river discipline to ensure that the oarsmen, who after all face backwards, don't run into one another. But the tideway down here is a hive of activity all around the year, and this of course is one of the highlights of the season, and the fact that it's coincided with a boat race has made a tremendous opportunity for everyone to see rowing. Meanwhile, we see Dan Topolsky making his way round the long Surrey Bend, which his Oxford crew rode so well this morning in the rough water. Smooth for him, but he seems to be keeping his form. Nice, easy, relaxed movement. You heard in the earlier interview with Stephen Redgrave saying that they didn't settle themselves into a good rhythm. It's very important that the crew develop a good rhythm, and that comes from maintaining good pressure through the water and relaxation forward. Rowing is a continuous cycle which you mustn't break down. If one person or more don't keep exactly to the rhythm, it soon stops the boat running, and everything slows down and becomes most uncomfortable. We saw how nicely the national squad lightweight 8 were able to keep up with the heavyweights who are struggling.
Well, the national squad lightweight time has just come up on the computer. I don't know what's kept it back for so long, but crew number 2, provisional time 16 minutes and 41 seconds. There it is, third down, and that puts them just 4 seconds behind the heavyweight squad. And still we see that extraordinary time up there, so maybe it is true.
Well,
University of London Tyrian 16 minutes 10.
Yes,
that's a full minute in front of the old record.
Yes, that would be quite remarkable. They are a good crew. It's essentially the old boys from London University, and it includes the Cox's 4 who represented Great Britain at Nottingham and who finished 9th, and also the mountainous Richard Budgett, who was Stephen Redgrave, Andy Holmes and Martin Cross's partner in the Olympics in 84 when they won a gold medal. So they've got a good pedigree.
Now, boat number 357 has a very interesting gentleman in it. That's the Maidstone Invicta boat, and coxing that boat is Brian Eadie, who was the cox of the winning Cambridge crew in the 1953 boat race, won by a huge margin. And there he is, the cox, Brian Eadie. Majestic dark clouds coming over the Thames, wind getting up just a little, the sun going in, probably getting quite cold out there now. And now we have the time for crew number 36, which was the one of the leading crews last year, but because of disqualification started well down. Crew number 36, University of London, provisional time 17 minutes and 8 seconds, which puts them in 7th place at the present time.
Certainly they wouldn't want to be beaten by their old boys, so there they are, a full minute in front of the old boys at the moment on the provisional times, University of London Tyrian. And we see from the results that the first 6 crews have all beaten the old record.
Well, this has been a truly memorable day out on the River Thames. Earlier today, the 133rd University Boat Race, which was won in quite remarkable fashion by Oxford in 19 minutes and 59 seconds, 12 seconds ahead of Cambridge. And now late in the day, the famous Head of the River event with, at the moment, the leading crew on our provisional times is crew number 8, the University of London Tyrian crew, who have come home, we're told, in 16 minutes and 10 seconds. And if that's true, that's a whole minute inside the whole record, the old record, and they've beaten by 27 seconds the favourites for this event, last year's winners, the number 1 national squad 8. So that's the news from the Thames at Putney.